On today's question of faith, should you parish hop or parish shop? Hey everybody, welcome to Question of Faith. I am Mike Hayes. I am the Director of Young Adult Ministry in the Diocese of Cleveland.
And I'm Father Damian Ference, the Vicar for Evangelization.
And I am Brandon Woods, and I'm the High School Youth Minister and Contemporary Music Director at Holy Martyrs in Medina.
And Medina.
Medina.
Yeah. Not Medina.
Not Medina. Medina.
Thanks for coming on, Brandon. And
thanks for having me.
So, Brand, how do you make your way to us today?
How did I make my way? Well, I got in my car.
Corny youth minister joke.
Yes, of course. We're full of them. No, I listened to your podcast, Is It Okay to Parish Hop? And I'm a very opinionated person. So I, of course,
not you.
Not me, no. Anyone listening that knows me is just rolling their eyes at me right now. But I have my opinions, and I just kind of wanted to share my own perspective on parish hopping, and especially from a parish employee's perspective, and somebody who has just been involved in parishes my entire life. I think I might have something else that I might be able to add to
that. And we saw your question and said, be good to have him in and talk about that, so let's do that.
All right.
So what is your opinion on parish hopping?
So my overall opinion, if you want my general answer of is it okay to parish hop, my general answer is it depends, but generally no. I think, of course, you have to find that parish home. You really have to, and that's why the irony of, and we'll probably talk about this later, of because the church is not a place where we're to be consumers. It's a place where we're to be disciples. And so, of course, we want to shop. I'm using air quotes right now.
Yeah.
We want to shop around and find the parish that we feel welcome in, that we feel that we can flourish in, but also that we can contribute to and that we can make a home in. So that's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So
I was going to say, I'm a philosopher by trade. Make the distinction between hopping and shopping here.
So for me, hopping and shopping, the difference is hopping to me says there's no commitment to this place. I'm just going to hop around to whatever really suits me that day. Hopping to me, which is going to sound ironic in a second, but hopping to me is just the sale at Walmart for Lay's potato chips is a lot better than the sale at Target. So I'm going to go to Walmart to get this, but I'm going to go to Target to get something else because the sale there is better. And I'm just going to bounce around from store to store and get whatever suits me that's better there. And that works in consumerism, but it doesn't necessarily work in parish discipleship. And I say parish discipleship very particularly. Parish shopping is more like shopping for a house. And I think I said this in my email. But it's more like shopping for a house in the sense that if you're going to buy a house, you're going to find a home that you want to invest in. You're finding a home, not a house. So I might like the bathrooms in one house, but I might like the bedrooms in the other.
So you should buy the two houses.
Yeah, just buy the two houses. That's financially responsible. For some people maybe, but not for me. But that being said, you want to find the one that suits you best. And over time, you're going to either adapt to the house or make the house something that is to your liking and fits you and your family's needs a little bit better.
Right. Yeah. So to put that into parish parlance, you're suggesting that people shouldn't go to youth ministry for one parish, but RCIA for the other.
Not necessarily, but what I am suggesting is so to give you an example, what I get a lot of at any parish that I've worked at, I used to get this a lot. A lot of people would come and say to me, Brandon, it would be really nice if our church did this. And I said, yes, it would be. I think that I've gotten a lot of ideas brought to me, and I always say, yes, that would be a great thing for us to have. So do it. We'll provide the resources. We'll help you get it started. We'd love to have you do this. Oh, well, no. Why would, and a lot of times I'd get the question, why would I do it if other parish has it? But if your parish is willing to start it, we want to provide the resources. We want to give you the chance to be disciples. And of course, as a parish staff member, I can be a little biased to that. Sometimes I feel a little stretched thin, but I definitely want to help. I had a parishioner come up to me saying, St. Ambrose is doing this date night, and at this date night, they have a speaker and they have a dinner, and it's all free, and it's a great opportunity for couples to get together. Can we do that at our parish? And I said, well, yeah. And I said, okay, let's do it. We'll help you get the resources together. We'll help you get it started, but then it's your baby. You have to run with it. And that parishioner has been running with it. And actually, we have that date night coming up this weekend. And him and his wife have been taking full swing at it. And so this is our second year doing it.
That doesn't always happen.
It doesn't always happen, no.
But when it does, and you empower people to do the work that they can do by the fact that they're baptized, missionary disciples ready to go, tap into people's talents. But sometimes people will say, okay, we want to do this. Okay, well, then you take it. No, you take it. We actually all need to be contributing here. So not every parish does what you did at that parish.
No, that's very true. We don't see that very often, or I shouldn't say that, but we don't see that all the time, and that's where the concern comes in. But where my concern is too is youth ministry is very different, than like if I have a family with teens saying that and say I'm at a parish with no youth ministry, which I don't know what I'd be doing there, but if I'm at a parish and I'm on the staff and we don't have youth ministry, and a family comes up to me and says, we'd love to have our teens involved in a youth group, but we don't have the time to run that youth group. We don't have we're stretched thin as it is. Of course, there's a different scenario where you would say, well, there's this neighboring parish that has a really vibrant youth ministry program. But there's a lot of ministries that feed us, but we're also called to feed as well. That's discipleship. We have to, feed and be fed. So my sort of situation, what I look at is, while yes, you will probably get involved in what other parishes are doing. That's the beauty of the universality of the church. You go to different liturgies, and other parishes offer different things or the same thing, but it's still a Catholic church and a Catholic community. But what I often see is, or what I often encourage is, if that parish can't get that thing started, or if our parish can't get this thing started, yes, of course, be involved in that at another parish, but find a way to give back to the parish that is your home, because that's still your home. I can go to a friend's house for dinner and I could bring the food, but I'm still going to cook at my own home.
Right. So if I'd like to make a different argument, I think. So if you're the parent of 3 teens, let's say, I don't know, and there's a vibrant youth ministry at a neighboring parish, not your parish, should you make a switch because the teens would be the priority, or is this still your parish home and you should just send them to youth ministry somewhere else?
So it's really interesting because I am actually living in that current situation. I have a family that came to me recently, and I won't go too much into detail, of course.
Sure.
But I had a family that came to me recently, and they said, we're at this parish and we just love this parish. This has been our parish for almost 30 years, and we've been here our entire marriage. And our kids grew up here. They went to the school here. We don't want to leave our parish. But our kids are just – the youth ministry program here is just not feeding our kids. It's not – and our kids just are not getting along with the others. And we hear you guys have youth ministry. We'd love to give that a try. Of course, if the kids aren't being fed in that program, but you're still being fed by the overall parish, there is a difference. But what's to note is this family isn't, splitting between 2 parishes. I mean
right.
They are still heavily involved. They're still involved as Eucharistic ministers. They're I think one of them's on parish council at that parish, but they're looking out for where their kids are being fed. And so you still see that involvement and that contribution to their parish family. And of course, I said down the line, we don't want to push you to make that transfer or anything. But if this does become your home, here's what we have. But if you're still involved there, that's good. That to me says if you're involved at that parish, but you're just looking for a place for your kids to be fed individually, that makes a major difference than we're just bouncing around to whatever works for us, and we're just kind of like, cafeteria Catholicing in ministry form.
Yeah, right. And I get it now, yeah.
So back to your shopping, hopping distinction, what does location, geography have to do, boundary with your parish? Do you think anything, something, nothing?
So I kind of go up and down on this, to be honest with you. And what really made me go up and down on this is when I started working for parishes. Because what I've noticed is, so I was at St. Luke's in Lakewood for a while, and I would talk to families who would come from Parma to Lakewood, and that just amazed me. But what I did notice about them is they were involved. You know, they were there multiple times a week. This was their parish, and they just fell in love with it, and that was their community. And we see the same thing at Holy Martyrs, and I saw the same thing when I was at Holy Family in Parma. People want to be involved in that parish if that's their community. So geography, I think, you should take it into consideration if you move to an area. But I don't think it's the defining factor, especially not anymore. I think in the olden days when, we were traveling by horse and buggy, it was a little bit different. But now, especially in our Cleveland area, we're blessed to have churches like we have gas stations. They're on every corner. Yeah. So it really is a blessing. But you don't necessarily have to rely on geography. I think it's when you find a community for you, when you find a community that is your home base, I don't think distance matters.
It doesn't go all the way back to horse and buggy. It's even the last 40 years that you would need permission to go join another parish that was out of your boundaries. Mm-hmm. So there is something to be said about like growing where you're planted. And we've done podcasts on that before too. Yeah. And you're right that we have 185 parishes in the Diocese of Cleveland, but not every parish is meeting every need, and there are a lot of different looks and a lot of different ministries or lack of ministries depending upon where you are and the amount of resources that a parish has, the size of a parish staff. Like you take a St. Ambrose, which you're close to, or something down in Medina, where back in the day those were like country parishes. And now they're some of our biggest. Like the two biggest, quickest growing communities in our diocese are North Ridgeville and Avon. Mm. Those are old farming communities, and the churches aren't big enough to hold all the people that come on weekends. But then you've got a place, churches in the city like St. Michael's or St. Stephen's or Immaculate Conception down the road here that at one time were bustling because they had neighborhoods and people live around, and that's not the case anymore. So all these things factor in, to the conversation.
It's interesting you bring up geography too, because the pastors told, and the parish staff for that matter, that they're responsible for all the souls in this geographic boundary.
It's canon law, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's the other piece of it, I think, too, is that when you're part of a parish, aren't you expected to understand the area that parish is in and contribute to that? Like if you're going to do some kind of social justice programming, you're probably going to do that within the parish boundaries. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's not enough of that work to go around in a particular area. Like you'd mentioned St. Luke's in Lakewood. I did field ed there, and I was like, wow, I'd really like to get involved in social justice stuff here. And most of the stuff that they were doing wasn't really in Lakewood. It was somewhat like they would adopt someplace else that needed help that was down the road because there are not a lot of homeless people in Lakewood. There's not a lot of those kinds of needs that are around, so they would go somewhere else to do that. And when they did, it was usually during times when I was in class, on Saturday morning or on Wednesday night or something too. So it was hard to kind of get involved in that from that standpoint. But I just think it's interesting. I just think it's okay, so we talk about geography, that a lot of places are sort of like destination parishes now, and people are choosing where to go. What does that do to the neighborhood that the parishes are in at the same time? Mm-hmm. Are people really getting to know those neighborhoods and contributing to them in some way when the parish is trying to do their best to do that as well?
Yeah, and we've been targeting parishes where many young adults live and are moving to Tremont, Duck Island, Ohio City, Hingetown, Lakewood, and these neighborhoods have gone through a vast amount of changes. But like this, we've talked about the Hillbilly Thomas concert. Were you at that this summer? Did you come?
No, I wasn't able to go. It fell on a parish event.
Because that's my baptismal parish, traditionally Slovak nationality parish. That now it's not like you have Slovak immigrants living in on Duck Island or Ohio City anymore. It's a lot of young adults who are some are empty nesters buying these nice apartments or condos or houses around there. But it's a whole different game. Yeah, it's different. We're in a new era here.
I think the factor we often don't think about when we think about these questions too is time. So like when we talk about families, I always think about my friend John, who's got 3 kids. They're a little older now, but when they were younger, I used to say, every parish should just think of John when they're getting ready for Mass on Sunday morning. And I said, because John has to get his kids up, dressed, fed, reasonably well dressed and reasonably well fed at that point on Sunday morning, get into his car and go how many miles down the road to get to his Sunday Mass, and when he gets there, it better be a place that's not just a good place to kill an hour. I mean, obviously the Eucharist is there, right? I'm not saying that, but it takes a lot.
Yeah, when you have kids, it's a whole different.
It's a whole different ball game. It's an effort. To get all this together, and for him, he was often like, he wasn't really satisfied with his parish, and I said, well, John, there's a couple parishes that aren't too far away from you that might be, a place that would feed you a little bit better. And he goes, oh, Mike, I just don't have that kind of time. And I was like, come on, John. It's only 10 minutes down the road. You could figure it out. Eventually, he did kind of try it and go and see that. But it was like, it took a lot for him just to go down an extra 10 minutes, right? It was a big deal for him. So I think that we have to keep that in mind when we're thinking about people as they're making their way to us. That eventually the factor for a lot of people is time. I can't take my kid to youth ministry all the way down here and go to this parish over here for things that feed me. Eventually, I'm going to choose one of them, I think.
Right.
Yet I can take my kid on traveling baseball every weekend or volleyball tournaments. So
that's
a whole other issue.
Yeah, it's a whole other issue, right?
What will you invest your time in? When it comes to church, bare minimum. When it comes to other things, all I've got. So maybe that's another podcast down the road. But so anyways.
In fairness to my friend, he didn't do that.
No, I wasn't accusing your friend of anything. I'm just accounting for what is.
And you mentioned in a previous podcast that you have the online streaming, and of course there's ups and downs to that. I think the biggest thing that makes me cringe is when people say I just love watching Mass in my pajamas and with my coffee online. And because I slept in that morning, and I try to pastorally, of course, say we should participate as if we're attending Mass. Dress appropriately, participate, stand, sit, kneel, say the responses. But anyway, it is a great tool to really get to know a parish and how they do liturgy. And then to go further, the website. The website is really what defines your parish online. What do you have going on? What do you offer? In other ways, what don't you offer by what you're not saying? You want that stuff right on the front page so people can access, so that way it's not a whole ordeal of I'm getting the kids and now we're going to a whole different parish. But I can look online and at least get the gist of what I'm looking at.
That's right.
And Mass times. They should be very easy to find. They should be
the first thing you see on a website.
Mass times.
Yep. Mass, confession, sacraments, if you do regular adoration, all of that should be the first thing that is on your website.
I did this workshop for 20 years. You'd be surprised how many parish websites don't have what time Mass is. We used to pull them up and say, anybody, give me your parish website. I'd pull it up and say, okay, what's wrong with this? Mm-hmm. And they would say, I don't know what time Mass is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the website says a lot about who you are. Whether
it does.
Whether it does or not, right? That's a different thing. But if you're looking at your website and it doesn't say who you are, it's not a good description of what your parish is like. It's time to make sure it does.
Yeah,
right.
First impressions matter, especially with younger people. That's even when it comes to vocations. They're going to look. Their first research is online research. It's not in-person research.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, I was saying to people too. A lot of parishes are stopping the live stream now that we've sort of come back, because they want to encourage people to come back in. I get that, but you should still have a small video snippet of something. Whether it's a snippet, maybe not even an entire homily, right? Maybe it's just half a homily that whets people's appetite, but give people an idea of what it's like to be at Mass here, because that's how they're going to make their choice of whether they're going to come or not.
Yeah.
A parish that does that really well is St. Ambrose. I've noticed that. I went on their website a couple years ago when I was at St. Luke's and we were looking at redesigning our website. And one thing that I noticed there is they don't necessarily have the full Mass. They have Father Bob Steck's homily on there. And what a tale that is to people who are looking at that parish and want to get a taste of what they're going to experience.
Yeah, sure.
And, we of course have our YouTube link embedded on our website to say, this is how you get to the Mass. And so people get to see that. we don't have, the staff and the manpower to possibly, edit it down and make it look nice and pretty. But like to have something like that on your website, like you said, it's a great ticket to see, okay, this is what this parish is offering liturgically. This is what it looks like. And my goal is to make a video for Life Teen. This is what Life Teen is doing at our parish. And this is Life Teen in a glance over the last year. If you want to get involved, contact Brandon Woods or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And so we've been talking a lot about parishes in general. Let's talk about a particular parish. How about yours? You're out in Medina. What's going on out there?
Oh, gosh. What isn't going on out there? We're very particular at Holy Martyrs. I talk about Holy Martyrs a lot, and I work there, but I really do. This parish became my home. And what's going on out there, so like I said, we have our date night coming up on the 28th. And we have a speaker coming in. I'm going to give him a little shout-out, Josh Arbogast, who is the Director of Faith Formation at St. Mary of the Falls.
Former student of mine.
Yes. Yeah, he's awesome.
Jarbo.
Oh, yeah, he's great. We're so excited to have him. So he's going to be speaking at our date night. Registration closes today, and it's a free event, so if anyone wants to come.
Today being Tuesday, the
28th is the Feast of St. Thomas Aquinas.
It is. It is the Feast of Thomas Aquinas. But we have that, and then we have our Life Teen Retreat coming up. We have a chili cook-off coming up next month as well. So in the next couple months, quite a bit of stuff. Our Lenten stuff is going to be starting up as well. Lenten communal penance and our Lenten series. And we have our small groups that just started back up about a week ago, and those are going really well.
Good. So that's Holy Martyrs in Medina.
Holy Martyrs in Medina.
Relatively speaking, it is a newer parish in the diocese. I mean, our diocese is 175 years old. Your parish is probably 40-some years old.
Roughly 40. Yeah, we opened in the 80s, early 80s. So.
And it's named after the Holy Martyrs are the Salvadoran martyrs, two of whom are from Cleveland. If you've never seen the parish, you probably have driven by it many times. If you drive down Interstate 71 heading south, it's right on 3.
Yes.
And it's just it's on the southwest corner, and it's on a little hill. It's a great location, and we've used it as a diocese just because it's so easy to get to. You get off the highway, and you're in the parking lot in 30 seconds.
Yeah. It's that great. Fast. And if you haven't seen it, it's the big red brick building. A lot of times, though, I've had people get confused because when you walk in, you're not expecting to see what you see. You walk in, and it's this big, open, carpeted gathering space.
Yeah.
Everything, the way the modern building was designed to really be able to be adaptable and to house people. Because, what we realized is people were leaving. So we, right after Mass, we wanted a place where people can gather and build community. So we have a cafe right after our Sunday Masses, and the second and fourth weeks of the month we have Donut Sunday, but we always have something available, people to get coffee. And so right after Mass, there's a line for coffee and donuts, and it's really awesome just to see people hanging out for an hour, sometimes even an hour and a half after Mass, just talking.
And Father Steve Donor is the pastor.
Yes.
And before he was pastor there, he ran the Marriage and Family Life office here in the diocese.
Right.
And your weekend associate's Father Mark Ott,
yes.
who teaches scripture at the seminary. He's a good
yes.
friend of mine. So, yeah, it's a great parish. If you've not been, pop in sometime and visit.
Holy Martyrs in Medina. And then our gospel for this coming Sunday is from the 5th chapter of Matthew. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain. Whenever you hear Jesus went up the mountain, something important's going to happen. After he sat down, his disciples came to him. He began to teach them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the clean of heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when they insult you and persecute you and utter every kind of evil against you falsely because of me. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward will be great in heaven." That's the whole gospel for
Yeah, you read the whole
Sunday.
Thing. Usually you don't.
Yeah, it was not that
you got
long
excited.
today.
You got
I got
excited.
excited.
I was listening. I was like, when is he going to stop this time?
I like the Beatitudes, yeah. Yeah, so what do we get out of that?
Oh, gosh. I get hope for the kingdom. I really do. And what are we doing for the kingdom,
Thanks, Father.
I was doing a little Ignatian exercise with this gospel yesterday, and the first 2 lines, or I guess it's the first line, separated by 3 commas. Jesus saw the crowds, then went up the mountain, and after he sat down. So he goes up the mountain, sits down. Then his disciples came to him. And I thought, well, that's really, that's weird. And I need to pray through that more this week. And sitting is often a position of teaching. And then he began to teach them. In America, you stand when you teach. In Europe, you sit when you teach. And so I guess I was reflecting on Christ the teacher here. And in the Old Testament, we have the Ten Commandments. The New Testament, it's not thou shalt not, but blessed are you. So it's a different look.
Yeah.
Or a fuller look.
I was reflecting with RCIA candidates on this last night, and one of my colleagues said something I never thought about. He said, these are really for like any stage of life. When you're mourning, when you're seeking for justice, when you're in need of mercy, when when you're trying to make peace. He said there's all different kinds of places here, and he goes, and I wonder if I were sitting listening to Jesus, which one would reflect to me at that point in time. And I was
Amen.
like, oh, that's very nice. Yeah, cool. So Ed Devaney, very nice. Little shout out for Ed over at Ignatius High School and at St. Brendan's Parish.
Cool.
Brandon, thanks for coming by.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks for your
question.
question.
It was an honor to be here.
If you have a question of faith, you could email that to us, mhayes@dioceseofcleveland.org. Remember to rate and review our podcast, whether that's on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcast. That helps other people find us a little bit easier. So this has been Question of Faith. We'll see you all again next time.